Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hash Rate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. My guest today is Sam Dare of Templar, Subnet 3. Hello, Sam. How you doing, man?
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So you were not at Endgame, right? Like, because I don't think was anybody from Templar there?
No. And it was, in hindsight, it was the wrong move. But no, we missed it because of jet lag. And we didn't want to be jet lagged. But it looked
You were
like
busy.
we're busy. Yeah,
You're
but
busy
still,
doing real stuff.
nah, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you are. You are.
Yeah, but BitTensor events are always so wholesome. And, I regretted missing it. I heard it was an absolute pleasure.
It was. I mean, absolutely. It was like a seminal event. Like, it'll be one that we all, I think we're going to look back and talk about like that event. It's sort of like when Vitalik was at the North American Bitcoin conference and went on stage and unveiled Ethereum for the first time, right? Like that was a moment in history, right? So I do think this
Yes.
bit, I'm sorry to bum you out because I know you missed it.
Rub it in, Mark. Rub it in. Rub it in.
So first of all, I love your name. Sam Dare is a great name. So, it sounds sort of like a 30s, like Sam Spade kind of detective guy, right? Sam Dare, see?
I think my parents were shooting for James Bond kind of thing, but
Yeah.
it just never happened. It just never happened.
Yeah, it feels like a 30s sort of gumshoe kind of guy, right? Here's the story. See, the city is dark. It's a noir film, right? It's like one of those that kind of vibe, right?
Imagination, and I might just ditch Templar and go into comic books.
Become a pulp hero. I think you could do it, man. That name.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about dTAO just in general for now, and then we'll jump into Templar. But what do it's been about 90 days since dTAO launched. What do you think about it? And do you think it's succeeding? Where do you think it's succeeding? Where do you think it's failing?
I think it's succeeding massively in aligning incentives. So, what it is, what people do not understand is far past the fair launch, which is really good, and it gives every subnet the greatest chance of getting their Bitcoin moment, their Ethereum moment, is that you see us subnet owners, for better, for worse, we are meant to stir the ship. We're meant to set the direction, and we're meant to be the foundation of the subnet. But now in the root network, every day, 8 to 9 p.m., you get paid 10, 20 grand, you have a good day. In dTAO, you need to create long-term sustainable value before you can even dream of even taking out a slither. And in the beginning, it hurts, but then you realize that, to build things of value, this is what it takes. Like, you don't think, okay, what's the cheap trick I can pull this week, or who do I know? It's literally, you need to build world-class products. So across the board, every subnet has to step their game up or die. So you have I'm pretty impressed with the output I'm seeing from every other team because it's just worlds apart. And if TAO is because TAO is actually the sum of its subnets. So and if TAO is to survive, everyone needs to come out fighting. So dTAO really incentivizes that. What I don't like is not having money, but I never had money in the root network anyway, so not a lot has changed. And also the market dynamics. So we always thought the market is the best, but as we go further down, there are some metas that might be arising. Take for example, Choose, amazing subnet, but will capital always allocate to Truth? Or will the dominant strategy be, a new subnet, no liquidity, we can get the price high? So it's interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, but I mean, your subnet's done pretty well, right? Like Templar is up there on the charts, right? Yeah, so you've done well, but like you say, like I have no money. Like how can that be? Because you've been working. You've obviously been getting TAO for your subnet before dTAO. And you're one of the top-ish subnets now, right? So
why does everyone think that?
Well, I don't understand that. Yeah, go ahead.
For the whole of root network, then 2 weeks before dTAO, all of a sudden I had like 1.9% emissions. which I gave all away to miners via bounties. So I never really got that. Like literally, I started from when we were 48 subnets, I was 47th. So it was a really slow burn till 2 weeks before dTAO. So okay, not poor, but like nowhere near like the the real root dividends, which I think was a blessing because it let me learn to be very lean, very anti-fragile, and understand what the minimum I need to develop to build. So take for example, I'm not sure if I'll do it again, but I built the whole of Templar V1 all by myself. So it almost killed me, but it made me realize that I don't need 5 people to do this shit. Like, you understand? Right. So it makes you more like, so because I never had the luxury of X thousands or 5 figures every day, I learned to work very small. So now we scaled the team to about 4. What I actually need to run the company is very small compared to what I have in my pool. So we had a community call, and they agreed to let me spend 400 TAO every month from the pool. And I think that is what dTAO is meant to incentivize. You should communication with your community and also to deliver far more value than you can take out. Because 400 TAO every month, first of all, my competition has raised far more than that. But people think I'm crazy, but I really don't think I need that much money, at least for the next 3 months. So dTAO enforces frugality, or not frugality, but just wiser with capital.
Yeah. So so basically, 400 TAO at today's prices is around $175,000 a month. So that feels like a legit burn for a small startup, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. And there's definitely been some debate over should subnets sell their own alpha tokens in order to pay the bills, right? And is that a bad thing? Should there be some third rail event? Should they raise venture capital to prevent doing that, right? And I don't.
So here's the thing, and I've had a lot of back and forth. I don't hate venture capital, but a lot of people are very young or first time. You know what BitTensor was like? They do not understand the dynamics of venture capital.
Yes. No, that's true.
If you do not understand the dynamics of venture capital, you might think you need it. Because honestly, one of the biggest things that happened in my life, it was such an awakening moment. I felt like I needed to raise 1 million for Templar when I already the risk, because you have insecurities. You think you need to be like the big boys and whatnot. So long story short, I almost sold Templar. I almost sold 1 million Templar, 200,000 Templar for $5 when we were at $10. I was this close to doing it. So, and it's not that venture is bad. No, venture is not bad, but it's their job to find a deal. And what is a deal? Misalignment in expectation. So if I'm going, I need $1 million, and you think you can get it for, that's what you do. So now when you do that, you kill the dream. So a bad deal it will demotivate you, or you just realize you've made the wrong decision, or you have the wrong partners. So I'm not saying don't take venture, but the first purpose of dTAO is not to enrich moon boys. It's to fund development teams. So if dTAO cannot fund development teams are either too fat, which I think a lot of things across the ecosystem are, or dTAO has failed. Because but I'm not. But again, it's not a case. Well,
I think you're right, because I think look, one of the things that's beautiful about TAO is that it is an incentivization mechanism, and it basically creates subsidies for teams to create open AI, like truly open AI, not the company open AI. And and that's what it's supposed to do. So you're supposed to sell your emissions to fund your company. Like, that's the point of this, right? In part. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what did Uber do? Uber raised a bunch of money to subsidize, basically the unit economics of their ride sharing business that didn't work for 10 years, right? But it did eventually even out and work. It just took a long time. But there's nothing wrong with subsidies, I guess is what I'm saying, and that's what the TAO missions are.
Yeah.
So
But it's like it's just a stigma because I still haven't sold my pool because I just need to share slides and explain to everyone. But it's like they just look at it. The perception is if you sell your pool, then we don't want to invest in you. It's like no,
there's something wrong.
Yeah, because people need to understand. Yeah, we're all on life support until we reach our targets. The only way to create sustained value is through investments. Yeah, and some people take a VC deal, but I look at my position. Like we've created the first decentralized permissionless training protocol in the world. There's a lot of value in that. You understand?
There is.
We've de-risked so much. So if I'm telling you I want to sell less than 2% of my pool every month, and you want to lose your shit over that, then I don't really know what to tell you, bro.
I think that's completely fair. I think it's Sam, totally fair. All right, so let's get into Templar now, and I'm gonna give a crack at explaining it for the general audience that may not know sort of a lot of the complexities of what you've achieved here. So when you go out to create something like ChatGPT or Grok or DeepSeek, an LLM model, you basically do it by crunching a bunch of information. In the case of ChatGPT or Grok or DeepSeek, the internet. That's your information base. You're crunching it down into a neural net large language model. And to do that, to create that model, that takes enormous computing power. And normally, the only people that have that level of computing power available to coordinate at any one given time are people like Elon, Amazon, Facebook, Google, or maybe China, right? So, but along comes Sam, and Sam says, well, we can do the exact same thing that these large corporations can do with large server farms. We just do it with a swarm, like a massive swarm of lots of little computers all over the world, including like sort of home PCs and things like that, is my understanding. So did I get that right? And what would you like to add?
First off, I had no idea you were interviewing for Templar, but you've got the job. You've got the job. But it's slightly different with us. So apart from the home computing, and that's pretty much it, because yes, it's like when you train large language models, it's like compressing the Library of Alexandria into this finite space and making it smarter. But the problem, as you said, is it requires 100,000 H100s. But the problem, it's not a technical limitation, it's a failure of coordination. We have the tools, and we have the technology to make this work. So we don't foresee, for us, we don't care about home computing because it doesn't mesh well into BitTensor. And the technology for doing it, like swarm parallelism, is not there yet. And there's people doing that, but what I personally think is that BitTensor is the perfect place to build this because we want, there's been many attempts at volunteer computing, but volunteer computing is you always descend to the lowest denominator. So if there's a Raspberry Pi on the network, you will train at the speed of Raspberry Pi. So that's what we probably want to do. We're saying that, look, can we incentivize people to run many data centers that provide those? So instead of like, let me do 1,000 H100 divided by 256. Yeah. So, it's 100,000. Sorry, 100,000. Give me a second. 100,000. Yeah. So instead of having one person come up with 100,000 H100s, can we have each miner source 390 H100s or 290 H200? This becomes a more rational number for one person to come up with. Then using that, can we combine their resources? So there's different ways of people are doing this, but what we're doing is true collaborative training where we say miner. So when you train, when you do machine train LLMs, you do stochastic gradient descent. So you send gradients. That's the artifact. And the gradients reduce
Can
the
you break
loss.
that down a little bit? Because I think you're now speeding past even where I'm at, right? So let me restate something you said because I think it was really important. So from what you said, the problem with sort of a decentralized training network is the slowest computer on the network slows everybody down. So
Yes.
no, because it all has to coordinate, right? So if you have one rule, slowpoke, everybody has to downgrade their speed to the slowpoke, no matter who they are. You don't want the slowpokes. You're saying your bar, so no home computers, no Raspberry Pis. It's got to be H100s, and so there is a minimum threshold of compute power that you will accept into your network. And
Well,
so go ahead, and then
so it's not like you can plug a Raspberry Pi. There's nothing that stops you from plugging a Raspberry Pi, but you just wouldn't make any money. So it's a way we design a validation system that the validators right now they run on H100s. So basically, let me explain the flow. The miner gets the page from a data set. So we assign each window, which is eight blocks. Each miner is assigned a set of pages that's deterministic. You get these pages and train.
The pages are the data that you're trying to crunch, right? So
yes, exactly.
Raw data, the contents of the internet, like whatever that is.
Okay. Exactly. You get them, then you train as hard as possible. So when you train, you try to absorb as much of those pages as possible within a time limit. Then you send them, then you broadcast them. Other miners pick them up, but the validators pick them up too. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. Is the validator samples a bit of it and says, hey, can you beat my loss? So that's where the lower limit is, that the validators running the H100, the miners have to beat the validator and beat themselves. So you're scored on how much better you do than the validator. And that little thing, I'm simplifying it a bit, but that little thing creates that incentive flywheel where miners will throw as much compute, as much innovation as possible to figuring out how do I outperform this validator and outperform everyone else. And in that, you unlock the magic of BitTensor. In BitTensor, you build your validation system and you outsource innovation out to the edges. I don't care what the miners are doing as long as they give me gradients that are correct. So they can be running, and this is also how it becomes.
What is a gradient? Because I think we need to explain that.
A gradient is just some weights that reduce the loss. So when you do machine learning, you do a forward pass, then you do a backward pass. Then that creates the gradients. Then you update the model weights. So So for us, we look at those gradients as your how much your artifact, your contribution to the model. So every round, everyone is sending us gradients. We're scoring them. We're adding them to the model. The loss is dropping because the objective of training is to reduce the loss. And when you reduce the loss, it's saying, okay, based on this data, we understand 80%, we understand 70%, we understand until you reduce the loss as much as possible. And gradients are the things that reduce the loss. Does that make sense?
What does reduce the loss mean? Explain it to me like I'm stupid, because when it comes to some of this stuff, I am.
Sorry. So basically, the loss is how much. It's basically an accuracy, like straw man. It's an accuracy measure. So it's saying that based on the data. So you have the training data and the validation data. How well do we do? So higher loss, bad. Lower loss, good.
Okay, so basically, you have a bunch of data. I inhale it as as part of Templar, and basically, my model's comprehension of the data that I inhale.
Exactly.
Right. So if I understood 60% of the material, but not 40%, by querying it, that's the loss. Okay.
Yeah. So it's reducing it over time until it's very, very little. Then you do some other funky things to it. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. And we found that, so the hardest bits of any subnet is building that validation system, because you need to lean into your miners. So you want to expose just that problem of loss reduction. But here's the thing. I wish most subnet owners, new subnet owners understood. Miners will do everything but what you want them to do in the beginning, because miners are rational economic actors. They don't care about your loss code. They care about their incentive. So they would, oh my God, I love my miners, but they literally drove me crazy. Because you find out that, it takes at least a month before, and that's pretty optimistic, before you actually start developing your protocol, because miners will exploit the crap out of you. Like, it's like, is there a plus where there's not meant to be a minus, or you're doing some silly thing? That is all part of hardening. Then eventually you get it. Your job as a subnet owner is to remove all the meta games. So the only way to make profits is by doing by them doing what you want them to do.
Yes.
Which I think we've gotten to Templar, and we've gotten with Templar for now.
Yeah. Okay. So how does, so looking at what you do, you said you're the only, I think you said something like you're the only decentralized compute network at the moment in the world.
Training network that's live on mainnet.
Training network that's live on mainnet. Okay. So I've heard Sam Altman say that he's sort of at the limit of, what he can do with his compute farms. He's going to have to at some point move to decentralized training. He has said that.
Really?
Right? Oh. Yeah. No, I wish I had the quote in front of me. I don't, but I did see him say that. I think JJ or somebody like reposted it, which is where I saw it. Isn't this something that the big boys like Google and OpenAI are going to probably do in the future? What do you think about that?
So you need to understand incentive, like the game we're playing and the game they're playing. So they're playing closed source. It's about democratizing the power to write books. Because if we do not have the power, AI is the strongest. It's like literally going to be omnipotent. Mm-hmm. Remember, because Mark Zuckerberg wears gold chains now, and Google has pretty pictures, Mark Zuckerberg stole democracy. We should never forget that Mark Zuckerberg stole democracy. Google has committed a litany of privacy and human rights violations. Are these the people you want to give Prometheus fire to? No. So let them do whatever they want to do. Like, let them what they do. Templar's mission is really to build, to run global scale training runs and build world-class models. Because once we have that ability, it doesn't matter what Google builds. But you understand, it doesn't matter what Google, it doesn't matter what Altman builds. Because again, it's just having the compute and the resources and the technology to be able to build this model is so important. It doesn't matter if Altman does it or not.
Right.
And also the problem is that, you see, we reach a limit with how much compute you can throw at the problem. So we're hitting a lot of issues with how much compute you can throw at the problem, how much data there is to throw at the problem. So there's a lot of interesting bits to this, because even if he has more compute, like a lot of these models are already ingesting the world's data. And now here's what's really funny is that knowledge, reasoning. So knowledge is there's two types. There's archaic stuff, which is happens through history, but there's also recent knowledge, like breakthroughs. So you need a way of keeping up with breakthroughs while consuming that knowledge. So even if he wants to get more computers, let him get more computers. We just need to have enough of the technology or the backbones to be able to match it, so that Gemini or O1 or O17 or whatever it calls do not become the only thing out there.
Yeah, because your point is that basically, if you look at Facebook and old Twitter and Google, we've seen signs of corruption in all of those entities. So if you have centralized control, you're going to have centralized corruption at some point. So building a training, basically the way to defeat that is to create sort of a Linux, if you will, of training.
Exactly.
That nobody controls, that we all control together, and is open and free to anyone.
You're pretty good. Like, I understand you got
I'm just repeating what you said.
I'm saying you got hash rate going, but you could part-time Templar,
So, okay, let me ask you this then. I mean, how close are you? Can you create a model right now that's I imagine not, that is a frontier model which competes with OpenAI? I'm guessing the answer is no. But how far away are you from that? Are you years away from it? Are you months? Like, where do you think you are?
I would say months. I would say
Really?
months, or the longer months, like the 18 months. I'll say because it is like if we get there in 18 months to a year, it would be phenomenal. But it is a lot of work and there's a lot of different dependencies. But the truth is we've already created the kernel that's permissionless, so we can accelerate in moving up model sizes. But again, these things take time. Our runs are synchronous, so we can't have like multiple runs at the same time. But 18, if like again, over promise and under deliver. So let me say 10 years, but yeah, it's
but possibly in a year and a half kind of thing. It's like
that's what I'm gunning for. That's what I'm gunning for, is that for every model we train the best in class model. We just finished our 1.2 billion training. It's a very small model, but we're going to write a report on it and it should be out like in a week or so.
Wow. And so when DeepSeek achieved what they did, right? And I think there's some debate over what they achieved, but I think everybody agrees that they were able to do quite a bit more with quite a bit less, right? What did you see? What did your eyes see when DeepSeek came along?
So with DeepSeek, there's a lot more sunken costs that it took to get where they got to. So it doesn't include the cost of the previous models and the cost of the base model and whatnot. But it is quite impressive. Like they democratized a lot of it for us. So I think DeepSeek did a lot of amazing things, which Templar would hopefully learn from. Like they illuminated a lot. So a lot of this like frontier labs like Anthropic and OpenAI, they have loads of tricks that DeepSeek probably exposed. Not exposed because again they weren't committing anything illegal yet, but just illuminated and made everything open source. So DeepSeek did make a big stride in it. The problem is like mapping directly DeepSeek onto decentralized training is that DeepSeek uses a special kind of model called it's a sparse model. It's a mixture of experts. So what we usually train until DeepSeek came was something called a dense model. So you just have the attention layers, you have the feed forward layers, and it's all packed. But in mixture of experts, the sparse models, you have the attention layers, then you have an expert layers. Now, expert layers are like the feed forward layers, but they call them like imagine one row with 15 tiny boxes, and each of those boxes are feed forward networks. Now, hold on, this is going somewhere. So these work better for inference because not all the parameters need to be active at once, and it's a lot better. Like it's where most things are going. But the problem with doing that in a decentralized setting is the communication costs will kill you. Like because this is I wish I had a whiteboard. Sorry, is that when you train, you go up one layer, you go up to the feed forward layer. It's one layer. But in a mixture of 8 experts, you go into this layer, there's 15 experts, they have to do collective calls. So collective calls are things you do, like there's many, you need to ping 15 people, then ping all the other layers again. So it just becomes crazy. But But
DeepSeek chopped up the monolithic AI into a bunch of little AIs. Right? Is that basically correct or no?
No, they just showed us how it was done at scale because most of OpenAI's models are rumored to be like that. Anthropic models are rumored to be like that. Mistral, Mistral? They are like that, but they just did it so well, and they had so many breakthroughs with regards to mixture of experts and some kernel things.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about when I look at something like Shoots or Targon, I get how they make money, right? Like they basically somebody comes along, swipes a credit card or pays in TAO, kind of depending, and they're up and running with one of the models in a cloud. It's basically cloud hosting plus model. Swipe a card, it's up and running in like 3 seconds. And if they get to scale, they're making money hand over fist. And some of that money goes to buying back their alpha dTAO tokens, right? Now, I don't know if that works or not, but that's sort of the theory at the moment. What's sort of the corollary? Well, go ahead. You can comment on that, but I'm wondering, like, what do you do? Do you charge people? And where's the toll booth? And do you make money? And how does that all work?
So this is further down the line. When it comes to monetization, we're probably the furthest behind because there's still a lot of R&D to be done to get there. But what it will look like is for the first time, we will be able to offer pre-training as a service. That would be the baseline of it, because what we envision is that we'll have so much compute and have the best platform for pre-training that Foundation Lab, other frontier labs will buy our tokens to train on our platform. Kind of like what Gradient does. But Gradient does post-training. We're focusing on pre-training. Why? Because what you're finding now, so how things are evolving is that initially what people do today is they say, okay, let's get a base model Llama 4 and let's fine-tune it. So you go to, you get your Llama 4, you get your hash rate data, and you further fine-tune it. Now, what is emerging are niche foundation models. So Netflix has one, Service one, and what this guy's called? The payment people, Paddy something.
PayPal?
No, not PayPal. No, the Irish twin guys that. Oh God, I can't remember their name. They're really big payment platform. Anyways,
I don't know.
Anyways, that's what's happening. So you're getting foundational models that are specialized. Now, a foundational model is so it's not just pre-training the base model. Netflix and people are building domain-specific foundational model. This is just one of the use cases where the compute requirement or the training is not just take this base model and fine-tune it. You're actually going to have to do the whole pre-training loop on those models. So that would be pretty. I see that market growing pretty quick. We can also do other types of training because if you look at everything else, there are just different life cycles. So pre-training is from step 1 to 2000. Do this, then post-training.
What?
2000, like whatever the time is, like this time boundary. So for 2000 steps, do this. Then to push train for the next 2000 steps, do this. So we could extend that to do that. And we could also do inference because once we have that backbone and the backbone of pre-training, we can adjust the platform to do different things. So, but the first thing we need to get out the door is how do we pre-train? Because I think the market for building, because again, if you imagine that people are resource poor and they need to build these really big models, and Templar has the foundations to build this, then it's a market that will definitely come.
Yeah, so basically, it's if you want to create your own model, whether it's a specialized model or or general, but probably more specialized, like you say, Netflix. Yeah. You said people will purchase
Stripe
tokens.
Stripe creator.
Oh,
Stripe creator.
And it's the Collison brothers, right? Or,
the Irish.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you said something in just now. You said that people would buy your tokens in order to get pre-training. So did you mean that they would buy your alpha tokens, Templar alpha tokens, Subnet 3 tokens? Yes. Okay. So you'll charge Subnet 3 tokens in order to, it'll be like a utility token. I know it's a dirty word now, but I don't think that's a terrible word. I think it's fine.
Again, these are extremely forward-looking statements. Whether it's cash to buy the tokens or whether it's actually using tokens. Yeah, that's what I see.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And okay, so what is? And you've been watching the whole subnet space. What do you think? We still haven't had a subnet that's really broken out at scale yet. We have a lot of. I think we have a lot of signal. I think we've got a lot of great competitors on the field, but I wouldn't say we have a breakaway winner just yet. Right, like when Ethereum launched.
I don't understand how anyone catches truths.
Well, you might be right, but let me just finish the thought. Right, so with Ethereum, when DeFi launched, right, there were a lot of competitors on the field. We didn't know who was going to win, but eventually Aave and Uniswap, and those things, and Chainlink, like those became the very clear winners out of a sea of maybe winners, right? And I think right now in BitTensor in the subnets, we've got a sea of maybe winners. It does look like Shoots is going to be, one of those classics that can't be caught, but we don't know for sure just yet. So tell me what you think of what do you think a successful subnet looks like?
It's really hard to tell because you see, so my personal view is we just don't know. Because I think people are fetishizing on revenue far too much. Far too much. Because when you start to look at revenue, how long, like Choose is, like, I have so much respect for the Choose team, but how much before they offset their revenue, their emissions? It's probably like, I don't know when that happens. So, this revenue, because when you look at revenue, it's very hard. You're forcing them to become SaaSes. And if you look at BitTensor Subnet as SaaSes, you cannot compete with Web2 SaaSes because their code is the stuff is generally more efficient and the unit economics are far better. So I don't know. I don't know. I might just have my head in the sand, but I just think that we need to become truly truly BitTensor native and understand where that takes us, rather than forcing that. This is because I see it around, and I've always hated it. In fact, I only just got comfortable answering the where's your revenue question. It used to really piss me off. Because to me, I'm like, can't you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to free humanity from despair. But it's a very genuine question. But I just think that people need to lean to the edge of where BitTensor takes you rather than because when you start to build a SaaS before you make some design choices that might be some suboptimal if you start to do that too early. So take for example with Templar, if I'd focus on building a training platform rather than understanding the incentives or how this incentive mechanism will work, I would never what will happen? I would spend a lot of time building the front end, building this, building that, rather than focusing on my core layer. Then I will take a lot of shortcuts, because I've got a front-end team. I've got to finish building this SaaS. At the end of the day, you don't build something special. Now, Truth is special. I do like gradients. I've actually tried push training Templar on gradients, and I hope I can do it. But I just think that subnets need to lean more into BitTensor and understand why you should be building on BitTensor. Because if you cannot lean into the full chaos of miners and harness them, then I don't think your subnet should be on BitTensor.
Okay, so your definition of a successful subnet is not one which produces revenue. You think that's a distraction. You think it should be BitTensor native, and you think it should basically live off of emissions. No. Okay, so how does here's a question. I hear what you're saying, right? Like, my mind is open, and there are definitely things which focusing on revenue would have been a mistake. Like at LinkedIn or Facebook early on, right? You wanted to grow the network of people in the network first. Don't worry about revenue. Same thing with Twitter, right? Don't worry about revenue in the beginning. burn venture capital and then figure out how to like put ads on later. So that was absolutely the right move, right? So, but there has to be. But how do you stay alive, right? Like how do you keep the lights on? Is there enough coming in from if you're not producing revenue, if you're not focused on revenue, then how do you live?
Well, I don't think it's unrealistic to expect the protocol to fund us for a year to do the R&D because that's the only way we survive. So
and
again,
and you mean emissions? You do mean emissions, right?
Emissions. Because again, it's about delivering incremental value and putting BitTensor on the map, gaining mind share. Because again, look at OpenAI. So again, what I see us as is OpenAI's Dota moment. When they were beating Dota champions, no one knew ChatGPT was going to come out. So there has to be, exactly. So again, we're very frugal. We're 100% committed, but we need the space to be able to understand where this will truly take us. Because if you force me to put a SaaS on it, I can put a SaaS on it in a month. Will it be good? I don't think so. But I could pump it to be good. You understand? I could do that. I could give you a front end that, come train your model, blah, blah, blah. But there's still a lot of heavy R&D that needs to be done before we can say, okay, this is the point. And where I see us going is getting to the $1 trillion and trillion parameter model size and building best in class through that. Because that gets us to reinforce our foundations all the way through that. But yeah, because honestly, Shoot's revenue, we saw what it was. It's not fantastic. You understand? And Shoot is the best platform we have.
Yes.
You understand? So it's
But the reason why people use Shoots partly is because of it costs. It's an 85% cost savings over anybody else, AWS or anybody else, right?
It's subsidized.
It's subsidized, right, and that's why they have this 85% cost savings, right? So I think that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? So, and I think from what I'm hearing from you, you're basically saying the same thing, except you're saying, let me focus on the R&D to get up to a trillion parameter model, which I'm guessing competes with OpenAI,
definitely. By then, we plan on making the models competitive, within the next 6 months. But again, this is it's a very R&D intensive project. If I knew how hard it would be before I started, I'd have opened Lolo Costo and I'd have got to do something else. I'm going to do something else. But, we've burned the bridges. We're already here. And, we have smart people working on it. We have one of the most engaged communities on BitTensor. We will deliver value, but, it'll be a waste of everyone's time, forcing a SaaS now.
Okay. Message received loud and clear. So let's talk a little bit about you now, because I'm very curious as to where how did you end up here? What were you doing before this? And I heard you were a nightclub promoter, among other things. So tell me if that's correct. Tell me about that a little bit, because that sounds awesome. And
Michael's a snitch.
Yes, Michael White is the one who told me that. But I was like, wait a minute. The guy was nightclub promoter? Before he was a Subnet promoter?
No. This is ages ago. So went to uni, did chemical engineering, hates it, got a terrible degree. So did nightclub promotion for a bit. But at the same time, I was doing CFAs because all my friends were bankers and they were failing. So I thought, you know what, I'll get a one up on them. So I passed all these exams with I'll go clubbing in the night. Then I studied in the day with a hangover, passed all my exams. Then I wanted to become a grown-up and tried to apply. Then I realized that no one's going to give me a job. So I let out the program, worked in email marketing for a bit, Salesforce, got really high up there. Then realized that if I had to send one more marketing email. I was going to blow my brains out. So, I went on a journey of self-discovery, found Bitcoin, bought it, made money, lost money, not by my own fault. So while I didn't understand I would never understand the price action of crypto. I don't like understood, but I did understand the transformative potential of the technology. So I got pilled. Wrote smart contracts for free. Eventually got paid to do it. Then when I started really working was in like the blockchain crypto space was when Shell needed a technical lead. So I helped set up Shell, the oil company. They were actually big on Ethereum back in the day. So I worked there, helped set up their blockchain center of excellence. Did a lot of work there. Then I just left because I realized that, enterprise is very important in moving technology forward, but they move so slow. So I left, went to Brave, was a blockchain architect at Brave. There was a lot of
at Brave, the browser, okay.
I worked at Brave. I love Brave, but it's not a blockchain company. It's a browser company. It's a browser company.
Browser company. Absolutely right.
Web 2.5. So Web 2.5, because it did pill a lot of people into crypto, but they don't. I found them quite frustrating because they were really smart engineers, but tell a Chromium engineer you want to put some crypto thing in his code base, he will murder you. They're not going to have it. So it was very hard. But I did do a lot of work around privacy, zero knowledge. That was fun. Then I left that, became CTO of a DeFi protocol. That didn't go well. The boss, she was an absolute lunatic. Then left, did my own thing, built a startup on Terra, was about to go live. Dokwan happened.
Terra Luna. So you run the Terra chain. Okay.
Oh, got it. They took me out.
I'm so sorry.
Then after
but I remember those days because everybody was building on Terra. Like that was like the hot chain. And in fact, I almost started a crypto hedge fund, and I was looking into custody solutions. And I talked to one of the I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was one of the major crypto custody guys, and they basically they were all happy about like their Terra integration, which they've been working on for a year, and they were like, oh my god, we've never seen this much activity on it. 2 weeks later, Terra was dead and gone and vanished, and I felt so bad for them.
You know what's crazy? People I just put their money in Terra and went on holidays. It was crazy. It was
they would raise money and they would store the dollars in Terra, right, in the Terra Luna stablecoin, because they made 20%. They made 20% APY in the Anchor protocol. So they're sort of like, why would I put this in a bank when I can make 20% here? And so then they lost 100% of it when Terra vanished. Yeah, it was bad.
I lost quite a bit. But fast forward, I was getting really disheartened with crypto. Was co-founder at a startup, didn't really enjoy it anymore. Just went online, saw a job, applied. Couple of hours later, I was talking to Jake. An hour after that, I had a job, became the head of blockchain at Open Tesla Foundation. It was an amazing job, like one of the best jobs I've ever had. Like
when was this? When was this?
March last year.
March of last year. Okay. Yeah. So wow, so this been a quick ride for you from there to here. Yeah.
Dude, I wish people had the joy of working with Jake, because people think I'm intense. Cause is literally he works hard. He works hard and he works everything's intense. So did that for a bit, but I'd already been disenfranchised with blockchains because they did deliver on their promise and they probably never would. So so I was really. Then I found out about BitTensor. Then I found out how much Subnet owners were making. Now I was getting paid a lot at the foundation, but I realized that I was poor. I was so poor compared to miners and Subnet owners. So I started becoming curious in the ecosystem, tried mining, started building some subnets. Then, eventually started building some stuff. I think I built a storage subnet at first, or I wrote the plans for a storage subnet. Then I realized that, nope, this thing is going to be crazy difficult. So that's why I think doing storage properly might be harder than decentralized trading. Because, because I don't have a competitor. I don't have a Web2 counterpart. But it's it's pretty much we define tomorrow. But with storage, you've got S3. So you already have, or you've got R2. You've got a crazily efficient solution that you have to beat. And storage technology is crazy hard. It's, in fact, I was trying to look at, so one of the things DeepSeek pioneered was something called 3FS, and it's a globally distributed database system. So I spent yesterday trying to see, can I build this on Templar? Because Jake shared what my old designs on that storage thing, and everyone thinks he's building a storage website. Nope. He took my old storage design document and shared it. So I tried saying, okay, can I build 3FS on BitTensor? 3 hours and 4 migraines, and a migraine later, I just parked it aside. Because I honestly believe storage technology is the hardest. Hats off to Storb and Hippios. So fast forward.
Let me just say something here because I just want to add some color. So I did talk to Vinny Lingham about Filecoin at one point. And you're right. And Filecoin competes with Amazon's S2, right? So the question is, and you bring up a great point. Like if Amazon already does it really, really well, why the hell would anybody ever use anything else, right? It's Amazon. It's going to work, right? So, and Vinny's answer with Filecoin, which I didn't realize, was again, it's an 85% cost savings over. It's incredibly. It's orders. It's very much cheaper. It's like I'm sorry. He said it was like a tenth. It was like a tenth the cost of what Amazon was charging. So, if it works, that's a very significant cost savings.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just my mental model of things being that. I don't know. It's just not my fight. Storage technology is boring. It's difficult. It's not like blockchain or subnet code. It's hardcore networking. It's terrible. I really, really respect anyone wanting to do that. But I just wrote the first version. I think I've even deleted the repos of the code I added in. It's not for me. It just didn't interest me. So then, Const was working. So Prime dropped. Then, I started working with Const originally on an old version of Templar. It was called Bistro or something. So worked with him, got it up, tried launching it. It didn't work. Then spend the next 7 months just fix it, rewrite it, and that's how we have Templar.
Okay. Well, so now we have the origin story of Templar and your origin story. So
all
right. Yeah. So Sam, we're coming up on the hour here, and I just want to. Is there anything that I did not bring up that you think I should have asked? Or do you think we pretty much covered it?
Yeah. I'm going to have words with Michael. that was a curveball. That was a curveball.
Yeah, sorry, dude. I didn't realize it was not public knowledge or something.
No, I don't care. It was just I was going to be no speak English or something. Or just
No worries, Sam. All right, man. All right. Well, I guess that's all the time we have. Sam, thank you so much for spending an hour with us and telling us all about yourself and Templar. So that's all we got. My name is Mark Jeffrey. This has been Hash Rate. We'll see y'all next time.
Thanks for having me.